grab your cup. Spiritual intelligence and relationships. I want to connect those, but first let me define how I see spiritual intelligence. So being spiritual or developing your spiritual intelligence is not meditating, praying, walks in nature, being quiet. Those are tools that can help you get there, Doesn't mean they automatically will just because you do them regularly. But they are tools and actions you can take. But what are you using those tools for? What are you trying to get to if you were developing spiritual intelligence or a deeper connection to yourself, okay? Spiritual intelligence means looking at connecting with the inner parts of you, which maybe you do by meditation or prayer, or maybe you don't when you do those things. But when you look at those inner parts of you, have you ever heard the term inner child? Probably most people have. If you've never had it, you might be like, what do you mean inner child? Or you've heard it and you're like, yeah, inner child. Here's what that means. Our child, when we are children, is when we learn who we are. You're not learning who you are at 40, although some of us have to relearn. But you decide when you're 5 and 6 and 7, when you go to school, when you're in your household, oh, who am I here? How do people relate to me? How do I show up? What do I need to do to get their attention? What do I need to do to receive their love? That's happening when we're children. And we create a way of seeing ourselves. Just because our bodies grow, so you go from being this big to being this big, the body grows, doesn't mean that viewpoint changes. That's your inner child, the way that you see yourself that you created when you were very young. So there's people who are 40, 50, 60 years old who are really running their life from the voice and the perspective of a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old. Just because their body grew, we learn more things. We learn things through school. We learn our skills. We learn tons of things. But if we don't learn how to adapt our identity and how, like, when did it not work? When did my 5-year-old make a decision about me that actually wasn't true? If we don't do that, then we're a 5-year-old in a 50-year-old body making choices about our life, right? So your inner child is really the foundation of how you saw yourself. And spiritual intelligence is being willing to look at, like to pull back the curtain and look at, where is my inner child still screaming out in the way they might have when they were 3 for attention? Where is that inner child still really hurt? Maybe throwing a tantrum, or just really hurt and going in their room by themselves, right? Whatever it is. But being willing to look at your inner child and how that's still showing up and doing what it takes to heal whatever that inner child is holding as a wound, right? The things that say, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, they don't like me, I'm not important, I better do this, this, and this to get their attention. That's all inner child speaking. And again, just because we have a big person body, if you don't look at what that inner child is saying and how they've continued to show up, if nobody showed you how to do that, then you have a wounded inner child running your life. So that's part of spiritual intelligence. What is my wounded inner child saying and doing that's still showing up? Also, my shadow self. Have you ever heard of the term shadow self? Your shadow self is the things that you don't want people to know about you, and we all have it. We all have things that we hold that happened to maybe years ago, or ways that we just never share with anybody because we're ashamed of it. There's parts of us that we keep in the shadows, even with ourselves. So being willing to go into the shadows, shine the light, and love and accept those parts of you that you've been trying to hide from everyone. That's shadow work. When you can do that, you're developing spiritual intelligence. embracing and loving your shadow self, listening to and nurturing and healing your inner child, practicing speaking your truth. So your truth is, this is really what I need. This is how life is showing up for me. This is what I'm willing to do. No, I'm not willing to do that. That's your truth. So how much you practice doing that, that's all spiritual intelligence. When you bring that to a relationship, now your relationship has the possibility and the opportunity, and it will, I'm gonna make that bold statement, it will shift in tremendous ways. When both people bring spiritual intelligence, now what can be created is, I would say, probably the best experience on earth, because we're here to relate to people and to relate deeply and fully, but we have to do that spiritual connection to ourselves first. You know what I'm saying? The other part of that is, when we're not spiritually connected, you might be doing all the actions, but you're not really willing to love your shadow self. You're not listening and healing your inner child. You're not practicing saying what's authentically true for you. That means you're living more in a level that's more, human survival. I need to get my acknowledgement. I need to do what it takes for you to love me, even if it's not true for me. I need to defend myself. I need to get my point across and prove that I'm right. I need to put boundaries up. Boundaries is a whole nother thing. When you're spiritually intelligent, you don't need boundaries. You create a different space for yourself, and then you live according to that space. So boundaries are part of, oftentimes, most of the time, surviving, being right, judging, all of those things. It's a difference between boundaries and standards. So anyway, that would be another conversation. But when you are living there, you're going to attract someone else who's also living in that way. The way that they do it may look different. It might even be like somebody who's more narcissistic, like their surviving, coping way of being is to be a bully and to dominate and to throw blame around everywhere and to shame people and to demand that they're right and their needs are met first. That's all narcissistic behavior, right? But they're a match for a person who takes it, for a person who says, oh, okay, what you need and say is more important, okay, because that's the coping way that they have learned. That's all from their inner child stuff. So you're not going to be a match in a relationship when you're spiritually connected to yourself with someone who's not. So if your relationships have been showing up a lot of fighting, a lot of blaming, a lot of defending, a lot of trying to please, a lot of feeling disconnected because you're not really saying your truth, I invite you to consider that spiritual connection, spiritual intelligence to yourself needs to come first. And whether that other person does it or not is up to them. And then whether that relationship is the thing that serves you in this life going forward is up to you. You get what I'm saying? So emotional intelligence is different. That's being willing to acknowledge your emotions, feel them, allow them to move through your body, process them, speak about them, and share them. That's emotional intelligence. Spiritual intelligence is everything that I just went through. When you have those things, you show up and you bring to you a completely different experience of yourself and the world. And you also get out of the cycles of anxiety, depression, exhaustion, burnout. All of those come from not doing the connecting that I just spoke about. And that's why spiritual work is a big part of the work I do with clients. In my Return to You program, we do a lot of that. There's a lot of other stuff we do in terms of rewiring how we think and other things and energy. But also in my Spiritual Mastermind, which is a year-long, once-a-week program, we do all that spiritual work. You need to do that if you want something different in your life. If you're interested, put me a comment so we can connect. Have a good day.